The Beast Wars are regarded as the largest orc invasion the Imperium faced in the aftermath of the Battle of Olenor. Led by a war boss known as the Beast, the Greenskins swept across the galaxy, inflicting heavy losses on every military branch of the Imperium of Man. Yet the true damage of his conflict lay in what it proved. In some dark way, it laid bare the spiritual decay of the entire human race. For most inhabitants of the solar system, the Beast Wars began with the Imperial Fists, Chapter's purge of the Xenos known as the Andamanth Swarm on the world of Andamanth. Since the Great Scouring and the disappearance of the last Primarchs, the Imperium had enjoyed over 1,000 years of peace. For more than a dozen centuries, humanity had not fought a major war, save for small-scale skirmishes with Xenos on the frontier. This was the Age of Mortals. 12 High Lords ruled the Imperium, and these nobles had grown drunk on their own power. Thus, when Xenos emerged on Andamanth, the crisis became a tool of political maneuvering. Andamanth was a forbidden world, merely 6 weeks warp jump from Terra. The Xenos there, the Andamanth Swarm, were large, insectoid creatures with a hive-like social structure. They were numerous, but they had no notable technology to speak of. That was the key. These Xenos, fierce as wild beasts, posed no real threat to the Imperium. Yet their presence in the core system, so close to Earth, made the question of who would handle them a political debate among the High Lords. Deploying troops, waging war, and managing the aftermath required endless negotiations, and the more trivial the task, the more it became a bargaining chip for politicians. After deliberation by the Council of 12, the Andamanth crisis fell to the Imperial Fists, the Space Marine chapter stationed on Terra. Since the Horusheresy and the Second Founding, the Imperial Fists had been the Emperor's chosen guardians of Terra, tasked with defending the core systems. But a millennium of peace had sown resentment. Some officials questioned the need to maintain a full Astartes chapter on Terra. Worse, they feared any military force they could not control. Since the Emperor ascended the Golden Throne, the Imperium had changed. Even the Custodians, the Emperor's personal guard, and the Sisters of Silence had faded. Crippled by guilt over failing the Emperor's vision, the Custodians locked themselves within the palace walls, rarely seen in public. The Sisters of Silence, as pariahs, fared worse. The new Imperium abandoned them. Refusing to obey anyone but the Emperor, they were cut off from supplies and forgotten over 1,000 years. Rumor had it, the Sisters, disillusioned with the Imperium, scattered across the void, never to be seen again. Times had changed. Old institutions and technologies were cast aside. Even some Space Marines feared their chapters would fade in an era without the Great Crusade or Crisis. The Imperial Fist's deployment to Andamanth was, in part, a product of Council infighting. Most High Lords refused to waste their fleets or guard regiments on bug hunting on a worthless world. Yet ordering an Astartes chapter to act? That was a chance to boost their own prestige. So, under the command of Chapter Master Cassius Mirren, the Imperial Fists marched to war for the first time in centuries. None could have guessed Andamanth would be the last crusade of the Sons of Dorn. Mirren committed 90% of the chapter to Andamanth, leaving only a small contingent of veterans to guard the palace walls. Strategic surveys estimated the Andamanth swarm numbered over 88 billion, dumb beasts, but ferocious. Thanks to political games, the Imperial Fists received no support from the new Imperial Guard regiments or the Adeptus Mechanicus. They had only their own battle brothers and a handful of Navy escort ships. Yet the Fists welcomed the fight. It was one of the few chances to prove their worth to the Imperium. At first, the purge went smoothly. The chapter deployed landing parties, supported by orbital fire, and systematically destroyed the Xenos' nests. But a strangeness lingered. The Andamanth swarm had never been this aggressive. They had once only fought to defend their hives, not migrate across star systems. The truth soon emerged. The swarm was fleeing. The Imperium stood in the path of something far more terrifying. Weeks into the purge, Andamanth's surface and orbit erupted in gravitational anomalies. The planet shook with violent geological upheaval. The Imperial forces were decimated. Space Marines died as gravity and terrain. Orda twisted around them. Orbiting ships crashed, torn apart by massive gravity wells. The Imperials had no idea who their enemy was. Some blamed the swarm for hiding gravity weapons. Others whispered of ancient evils in the void, warping the laws of physics. But the Astartes knew one thing. After a millennium of peace, they finally faced the brutal fight they craved. When Terra lost contact with the Imperial Fists on Andamanth, the Council finally took notice. The Officio Assassinorum and the Inquisition lobbied for action, forging an alliance between the Imperial Guard and the Navy. A fleet led by Lord Commander Hess of the new Guard regiments was dispatched to Andamanth, joined by the Imperial Fist's veteran palace guards who had volunteered to fight. When they arrived, only a small ground force and one heavily damaged Imperial cruiser remained. No enemy was in sight. Then the culprit revealed itself, a bizarre, artificial moon. Unbelievably, this colossus had been transported to Andamanth via advanced teleportation tech. Its arrival had warped gravity and space, and it was the Terror chasing the Andamanth swarm across the galaxy. Etched into the moon's surface was a massive, twisted orc totem, forged from scrap metal. This was no accident. It was the start of an orc, AAGH. The moon immediately activated its giant gravity devices to siphon Andamant's resources, crust, mantle, minerals, and energy. The orcs sorted the useful materials to build war machines. The rest, rock and dirt, was fired at the Imperial fleet at near light speed, inflicting catastrophic damage. Even the Adeptus Mechanicus marveled at the orcs' crude yet advanced technology. With this moon, the orcs could move at unprecedented speed. Countless ships and drop pods swarmed from it, a green tide of death. Why Dodge was not limited to Andamant. It was a galactic disaster. Frontier worlds fell to the Greenskins. Legendary first founding chapters, the Ultramarines, Space Wolves, Salamanders, were bogged down in brutal fighting. Above Ball, the homeworld of the Blood Angels, a second orc battle moon appeared. The mastermind behind this onslaught was the Beast, the war boss who sought to avenge the orcs' defeat at Olenor a millennium earlier. The High Lords of Terra had known of the orc threat. Some had hidden critical intelligence out of greed, others had sacrificed the Imperial fists to preserve their own power. When Robout Guilliman founded the Council of 12, he never imagined that 10 centuries later, the body that had pulled the Imperium from the Horusheresy's ruins would be so corrupt. Perhaps humanity's greatest enemy had always been its own greed. Once, humanity had defeated the orcs, united by the Emperor, Primarchs, Astartes, Guard, Navy, and Adeptus Mechanicus. Now, a single chapter, barely 1,000 strong, and a small guard fans. May the Emperor have mercy on their souls. The orcs did not stop. After draining Andamant, the battle moon moved on. Greenskin fleets ravaged the core systems, Terra itself was at risk, but hope remained. The Imperial fists were not extinct. After the battle, an Adeptus Mechanicus research vessel arrived to study orc technology and found 4 survivors, the dying biologist Laurentius, and 3 Astartes left comatose by their wounds. Only one Astartes was revived, Kuran, second captain of the Imperial Fists. As the last son of Dorn, Kuran made a fateful decision to activate the Final Wall Protocol. A secret pact forged by Primarch Roble Dorn during the Second Founding. When he split his legion into chapters, the protocol demanded that all Sons of Dorn rally at the Far System to form a temporary legion if Terra faced ultimate peril. Violating the Codex Astartes, it was a secret the Sons of Dorn dared not share. But Kuran knew the time had come. The Imperium faced its greatest crisis in a millennium. The orcs marched on Terra, the palace walls were undefended. Even if the High Lords labeled him a traitor, he would not hesitate. In the name of our Gene Father's ancient oath, Kuran whispered, it is time to call our brothers from the stars. The message was sent. Dorn's command would unite them once more. For Kuran, this would be his final battle. To some Imperial scholars, the orcs are an unpredictable force of nature, a green tide that destroys worlds, disrupts star systems, and spreads across the galaxy. They threaten not just humanity, but every species in the cosmos. And in that, they are one of the most successful creatures in this mad universe. The orcs' origins are shrouded in mystery. Some claim they are a genetic weapon created during the War in Heaven by the Old Ones. The orcs themselves believe they were forged by the Brain Boys, a supposed smart orc subspecies. No one can prove these tales true, but one fact is certain. The orcs are older than the Imperium, older even than humanity. Long before the Emperor revealed himself, during the Golden Age of technology, the orcs fought humanity. And war is the only thing these green creatures care about. The orc body is as simple and brutal as their society, and infinitely resilient. Their genes are half animal, half plant. That is why their skin is green. They feed like animals, but also grow via photosynthesis. This makes them nearly unkillable. An ordinary orc boy can fight on even with missing limbs, so long as his central nervous system is intact. Cut off an orc's head and stitch it to another body, it will survive. Orc reproduction is equally bizarre. There are no male or female orcs. They reproduce via fungal spores released from their bodies. When an orc dies, its corpse releases millions of spores into the air. These spores take root in soil, growing slowly, and they do not just spawn orcs. They create an entire ecosystem, from lowly stone-skulled creatures to Gretchen, snotlings, orc fungi, and finally, fully grown orcs. Every orc carries a mobile ecosystem within them. This is why worlds touched by the Greenskins are never truly free. Burn the battlefields, and spores will still drift on the wind. In time, the planet will teem with orc boys once more. Orc society is unlike any other. These greenskin creatures are always fighting, or marching to fight. They are obsessed with war. An orc needs no reason to battle, no honor, no hatred, no orders. They love fighting as humans need food and water. War drives orc society forward. Their genes are engineered for combat, they are living weapons. An orc civilization, born from spores, does not need to evolve from scratch. Knowledge of machinery is etched into their DNA via advanced bioengineering. Given scrap metal and motivation, an orc mech boy, with no formal training, can build a functional gun from junk. Give him wheels, and he will cobble together a rickety vehicle. Orc wars, especially against intelligent species, trigger explosive technological growth. In months, even weeks, an orc tribe can go from fighting with clubs to firing guns. As orc forces grow, they form war bands, then clans. Each clan embodies a genetic memory of successful warfare. The Bad Moons, rich from their fast-growing teeth. The Blood Axes, masters of sabotage and guerrilla warfare. The Death Skulls, scavengers who hoard loot. The Evil Sons, speed-crazed maniacs who love noise and vehicles. The Goths, brute strength specialists who thrive in close combat. And the Snakebites, who blend biotech with traditional orc ways. Orcs fight among themselves, but they share a genetic faith, devotion to Gork and Mork, the orc gods. These twin brothers are both alike and different. Gork is brutal and cunning. Mork is cunning and brutal. Mork hits you from behind when you're not looking. Gork hits you in the face when you are, and harder. This faith makes the orcs unique. Their gods are a reflection of their own violent nature, etched into the warp. Legend says, orcs join Gork and Mork in the warp after death, where they fight and wrestle forever. Thus, most orcs are immune to chaos. They have no need for other gods. When an orc clan finds a non-orc colony or military base, they attack with glee. If only orcs are nearby, they fight each other out of boredom. This infighting creates war bosses, the strongest, biggest, or most cunning orcs. A war boss rules a clan. If they unite multiple clans, they become a warlord. When a warlord emerges, the orcs become a true threat. United under one leader, they unleash a vash. To other species, a waagh is a disaster. Billions of orcs crammed into ships built from scrap, crossing the galaxy to find fights. To orcs, waagh is everything good, joy, battle, and progress. Mech boys shout, waagh, while building war machines. Boys roar it before charging. Is also a tangible force like psychic energy. It lets orcs ignore physics to achieve their goals. A broken machine, useless to humans, works for orcs because they believe it will. Paint a garbage truck red, and it goes faster because orcs think red means speed. This is why their rickety battle wagons and gargants function. The waagh. Energy bends reality to their will. The stronger the warlord, the more powerful the waagh. Orc ships, once junk, sail the warp. As more worlds fall, more orc tribes join the carnival of war. The warlord grows bigger and stronger, fed by the waagh. Eventually, the orcs sweep across the galaxy, a force no civilization can ignore. Even the Imperium at its peak feared this. During the Great Crusade, in the 31st millennium, the Emperor and his primarchs faced the massive orc waagh in the Ulanor system. Led by warboss Urak Gulfang, the orcs had built an empire. To destroy it, the Emperor personally led 100,000 Astartes from the Luna Wolves, Ultramarines, and White Scars, 8 million Imperial Army troops, 100 Titans, 600 Navy ships, and 3 primarchs, Horus, Robut Gilamon, and Jagatai Khan. The victory at Ulanor was so great that the Emperor named Horus War Master soon after. The Emperor had learned the orcs' danger long before. Early in the Great Crusade, when most primarchs were still lost, Horus, his first found son, fought by his side for 30 years. On planet Gore, the Emperor, humanity's strongest psyker, was nearly strangled by a giant orc warboss. Only Horus's timely intervention saved him. By the 32nd millennium, 500 years after the Primarch's disappearance, the orcs had risen again. Rumors spread across the galaxy. A supersized warboss called the Beast led an army of greenskins, sweeping all before them. Was bigger than Eleanor's, and he was closing in on Terra. But the Imperium was weak. A millennium of peace had made it complacent. With the Primarchs gone, mortals ruled Terra. The Council of 12 had once governed well, traitors hid in the Eye of Terror, Xenos raids were rare. It was one of humanity's few peaceful eras. But peace erased the memory of the galaxy's cruelty. During this time, a religion emerged, the worship of the Emperor as a god. It had existed since the Great Crusade, a small sect called the Old Order of the Emperor's Temple. They were not alone. Even when the Emperor walked among men, some citizens and even officials secretly worshipped him. This faith had helped during the horusheresy. The Emperor's divine image gave people hope against chaos. But after the heresy, it spiraled out of control. As the Emperor fell silent on the Golden Throne, the Imperium's truth faded. The cults grew bolder. The Old Order of the Emperor's Temple began preaching openly, sending missionaries across the galaxy. By the end of the 31st millennium, it was a major power. It absorbed smaller cults, and gained influence in the government. The High Lords, corrupt and complacent, welcomed the cult. It helped them control the masses. In the early 32nd millennium, the Old Order became the Imperium's official religion, the Adeptus Ministorum, or Ecclesiarchy. The Ecclesiarchy worked with the government, passing laws and accumulating power. Eventually, its high priest joined the Council of 12, securing a permanent seat. This marked the end of the Imperium's truth. The Ecclesiarchy's origins held a dark secret. Its founding text, the Lectitio Divinitatis, was written by Lorgar Aurelian Primarch of the Wordbearers, a legion that had betrayed the Emperor and joined chaos. Lorgar had abandoned his faith in the Emperor long ago, yet his book, once a tribute to the Emperor's divinity, became the Ecclesiarchy's holy scripture. This truth was hidden from all but the Ecclesiarchy's highest ranks. With the Ecclesiarchy in power, the Imperium's politics grew more toxic. Officials cared only for personal gain. Military forces became pawns in power games. Some even believed their authority exceeded the Golden Thrones. The Imperium was the Council's plaything. But the beasts, whip AAAGH, would soon make them pay. Centuries of stagnation and decay had left the Imperium vulnerable. The Greenskins marched on Terra, and the High Lord's reckoning was at hand. Kuran's message traveled across the warp, encoded in the ancient cipher of the Sons of Dorn. It was a desperate plea, carried by a single Imperial Navy frigate, the Last Vow, its engines modified to outrun orc raiders. The journey was perilous. The beasts, WAAA, had disrupted the warp, twisting its currents into a maelstrom of green energy. More than once, the Last Vow narrowly avoided orc cruisers, hiding in asteroid fields, or using dead stars for cover. Kuran, still weak from his wounds, spent his days in the frigate's chapel, staring at a relic, a shard of Rogel Dorn's armor, recovered from the horusheresy. "Father Dorn," he whispered, "they have forgotten your teachings. The Imperium rots, but we will not let it fall." The first to answer the call were the Black Templars. Marshal Grimaldus, a veteran of 100 Crusades, received the message on the world of Armageddon, where his chapter fought a smaller orc. AAAGH. He read Kuran's words once, then slammed his fist on the command table. "The Sons of Dorn do not abandon Terra," he roared. Within hours, the Black Templars' fleet crusader ships and battle barges broke off from the fight, leaving a small garrison to hold the line. Grimaldus sent a single reply to Kuran: "We come for the Emperor." Next came the Crimson Fists. Their chapter master, Pedro Cantor, hesitated at first. The Crimson Fists had been betrayed by the High Lords a century earlier, left to die on a frontier world after a political dispute. But Cantor thought of his chapter's oath, to protect the Imperium, not its corrupt leaders. He ordered his fleet to the Far System, sending a message: "The Fists do not forget their brothers. We will stand with you." Other successor chapters joined: the Nova Marines, the Iron Knights, the Red Talons. Each faced their own struggles: orc blockades, warp storms, even High Lords' attempts to stop them. Some council members feared a united Astartes force would threaten their power. But one by one, they arrived at Far System, a small, forgotten star cluster on the edge of the core systems. By the time Kuran's Last Vow reached Far, over 5,000 Astartes stood ready, far more than the Imperial Fist's original strength, but a drop in the bucket compared to the beast's horde. Kuran stood before them in the Far System's space station, his armor still scarred from Andamanth. "Brothers," he said, his voice hoarse but steady. "The beast marches on Terra. The High Lords bicker. The Ecclesiarchy prays. But we are the Sons of Dorn. We are the wall that stands between humanity and destruction." He held up Dorn's armor shard. "This is not just a fight for Terra. It is a fight to honor our Gene Father, to remind the Imperium what it means to be unyielding." The Astartes roared in agreement. Grimaldus stepped forward. "We need a plan. The beast has 2 battle moons, one near Baal, one heading for Mars, if Mars falls. The Adeptus Mechanicus cannot supply us. We must split our forces." Cantor nodded. "The Crimson Fists and Nova Marines will defend Mars. The Black Templars and Iron Knights will intercept the battle moon near Baal. Kuran, you lead the rest to Terra. Strengthen the palace walls. The High Lords may hate us, but they will not survive without us." It was a risky plan, but it was their only chance. The fleet split, each heading for their target. Kuran's force, 2,000 Astartes, including the last Imperial Fist veterans, set course for Terra. As their ships entered the solar system, they saw the beast's handiwork. Debris from Navy ships floated in space. Entire space stations lay in ruins. The orcs had already reached Terra's outer defenses. On Mars, the Adeptus Mechanicus fought for its life. The beast's battle moon hovered above the planet, siphoning its metal-rich crust. Tech priests in red robes fired laser cannons from Mars's forges, while Skitarii legions charged orc boys with electrified spears. But the orcs were too many, until the Crimson Fists arrived. Pedro Cantor led a drop pod assault onto the battle moon's surface, his Astartes cutting through orc mech boys and destroying the gravity devices. With the moon's power gone, the Mechanicus launched a counterattack, driving the orcs back into space. Near Baal, Grimaldus and the Black Templars faced the second battle moon. The Blood Angels, already exhausted from defending their homeworld, joined the fight. Together, they boarded the moon, fighting through waves of orcs to reach its core. Grimaldus dueled a massive orc knob with a power axe, severing its arm before driving the blade into its chest. "For Dorn!" he shouted as the knob fell. The Templars planted meltabombs in the moon's reactor, fleeing just before it exploded in a ball of green fire. But the beast was not defeated. His main fleet, hundreds of cruisers and battle wagons, still advanced on Terra. Kuran's force reached the palace walls just in time. Orc boys swarmed the outer gates, climbing over the bodies of guard soldiers. The Astartes jumped into the fray, their chainswords roaring. Kuran fought alongside his battle brothers, his power fists crushing orc skulls. For hours, the battle raged. The Sons of Dorn held the walls, but the orcs kept coming, wave after wave, fueled by the WAAGH. Inside the palace, the High Lords argued. Some wanted to flee to a distant system. Others begged the Ecclesiarchy to call down the Emperor's wrath. The Ecclesiarchy's high priest, a fat man in golden robes, ordered his Frateres Templar fanatical warriors to charge the orcs. But the Templars were no match for the Greenskins. They died in droves. The high priest screamed, "Why does the Emperor not answer?" Kuran, bloodied but unbroken, stared at him. The Emperor answers those who fight, not those who pray. Just when all seemed lost, a new fleet emerged from the warp, the Ultramarines. Robout Guilliman, recently returned from the Great Rift, a miracle the Imperium could barely comprehend, led his chapter to Terra. "Kuran," Guilliman said, his voice calm but commanding, "you have done well. Now let us finish this." With the Ultramarine support, the tide turned. Guilliman and Kuran led a joint assault on the Beast's flagship, a massive cruiser covered in spikes. They fought their way to the bridge where the Beast waited, a towering orc, twice the size of a space marine, wielding a chain axe that dripped with blood. "Humies," the Beast roared. "You think you can stop the WAAGH? I will crush your golden throne. I will avenge Olenor." Guilliman charged first, his sword striking the Beast's axe. The force of the impact shook the bridge. Kuran attacked from the side, his power fist slamming into the Beast's ribs. The orc roared in pain, swinging his axe at Kuran, but Kuran dodged, driving his fist into the Beast's throat. The Beast fell, gasping for air. Guilliman raised his sword, then paused. "Kuran," he said, "this kill is yours. You earned it." Kuran raised his power fist, then brought it down on the Beast's head. Energy faded, the orcs' morale breaking. Without their leader, they fled, or died fighting. Terra was saved, but the cost was high. Thousands of Astartes lay dead. The navy was in ruins. Mars's forges were damaged. The High Lords, humiliated, thanked Kuran and Guilliman, but their eyes held resentment. The Ecclesiarchy declared the victory a miracle of the Emperor, erasing the Sons of Dorn's role. Kuran did not care. He stood on the palace walls, looking out at the stars. Grimaldus and Cantor joined him. "The Beast is dead," Grimaldus said, "but the orcs will return. They always do." Kuran nodded. "Then we will be ready." The final wall protocol was not just for this crisis. It is for the future. The Sons of Dorn will never again let the Imperium forget its strength. Guilliman approached them, his armor glowing in the Terra's light. "Dorn would be proud," he said. "You've reminded the Imperium what it means to be unyielding, but the fight is not over. But chaos waits in the Eye of Terror. Xenos lurk in the void. We must unite or fall." Kuran looked at his brothers, then at Guilliman. "We are with you. We are with you. For the Emperor. For humanity." And so, the Sons of Dorn stood tall guardians of a broken Imperium, but unbowed. The Beast Wars had ended, but a new era had begun. And the orcs? They would return. But next time, the Imperium would not be caught complacent, for the Sons of Dorn would be watching.